Lemkin solitaire and equalizer seeders and planters offer disruptive innovation like vertical banding, dry and or liquid onboard fertilizer, and great prices. Go to lemkindemo.com for more information and to request a demo.
I'm Amber Bell, and this is Real Agriculture. Here today to speak with Dr. James Tansey, the provincial insect and vertebrate pest management specialist with Saskatchewan Agriculture, about gopher control. So, hi, Dr. Tansey. It's great to see you again.
Good to see you again too.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about gophers. Let's start off with like how big of a problem are gophers on the farm, and just what kind of damage are they causing?
You bet. Yeah. Well, I think first a bit of clarity about the use of the term gopher. So we've got a number of different burrowing rodents, some of which can be problematic, some severely problematic, some less so. What people normally call gophers are actually Richardson's ground squirrel. So the colloquialism is gopher, but gophers are also used for 13-line ground squirrel. They're also used for Franklin's ground squirrel, and they can be used for black-tailed prairie dog as well. The curious bit is that the term gopher is never actually used for northern pocket gopher. Those tend to get called moles. We don't actually have moles in Saskatchewan or Alberta. So yeah, northern pocket gopher is those large mounds of soil that you'll see, particularly in black soils, and very conspicuous mounds of soil. They spend all their time underground, but they are not moles. They are in fact pocket gophers, and of course the things that we call gophers are in fact ground squirrels.
So, how big of a problem are they, and what kind of damage do they cause in crops and pastures?
You bet. Yeah. So no, they can be significant issues, or a significant issue. They, either through direct consumption of plants, a lot of canola growers saw, seedling canola get really badly damaged by these animals. Their burrowing can cause problems as well, both for livestock and machinery, and that can occur, in pasture or rangeland. But the primary issues that we had this past year, or in 2024, were with in particular canola fields being hit really hard. So stand establishment was really slow with the cool and wet weather that we experienced in spring of 2024, and so this allowed the animals to move well into the fields, and I mean well into the fields. You saw in some cases entire quarter sections cleaned off. So initial seeding would go down, the seedlings would come up, they'd be consumed in over large areas by Richardson's ground squirrel. A second seeding would be required in some cases, and these would just be consumed because the ground squirrels were well established in that area. So it became a bit of a feedback loop. It's important to note too is that although where they did occur and where the damage did occur was at times pretty spectacular, and I saw ground squirrel damage really like I'd never seen before in spots this year. Overall, provincially in Saskatchewan, the amount of the numbers of claims associated with this through crop insurance were actually lower than they have been in previous years. So where they did occur, the damage was pretty significant, and that was typically in canola, almost always in canola.
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally you would see canola fields that were hit extremely hard with a cereal field right next door that was untouched. So they're definitely demonstrating preferences for that. And I did mention before, the slow stand establishment, they don't like it when plants are high. They like to be able to keep an eye out for, predatory birds and that sort of thing. And that's where I was getting at with the feedback loop of, them keeping the plants down and allowing them to establish, and then that feeding back on continued consumption.
Just continuing. So, going into this season, what can producers do? What are the best strategies for keeping the numbers under control?
Best strategy is early control, and it's important to note that the gophers are up. So there's me using the term gophers. So yeah, gophers have started emerging, and in some areas it's been weeks now. As much as 3 weeks in some areas. So they're coming up through the snow. A really good indicator as to whether or not you have a population there just at a quick glance. If you've got migrating bald eagles that are giving a lot of attention to a particular field, there's a very good chance that you've got ground squirrels in that region. So what you really need to do is get control down early, and enthusiastically. So get poison baits down. If you choose to use shooting, then that can be an effective strategy as well. We tend to recommend an integrated approach to control. So that is a combination of chemical, biological, and cultural control. So the chemical control obviously will be the poison baits, and they can be very efficacious, but it's really important to get those baits down early. Once green up happens, I mean, really the jig is up. It's going to be hard to get them to take the bait. Cultural control things like keeping plant height, above 15 centimeters. Tolerance of predators can be very helpful. Installation of raptor platforms can be helpful, and so that's where cultural kind of touches on biological.
And when we speak about bait, what would be some ways to keep other wildlife out of the bait traps? What would be, what would be the strategies for best management practices when it comes to baiting?
Okay, so it's important to consider too is that you are actually allowed to use bait stations with the current suite of registered baits. So with those, make the hole in your bait station. Have two holes. Have a container that's large enough for the rodent to be completely covered when it's in there. So a lot of guys will use PVC tubing and make an opening at one side that's just large enough for the ground squirrel. So about 3 inches across is plenty. Another exit point, and so the animal can move freely through that. If you choose to use bait stations, keep an eye on the status of the bait. They will foul that bait pretty quickly with feces and urine. Um, the recommended application that I favor is actually putting the baits down the hole, and a lot of growers will do that as well. Doesn't take very much bait. A very small amount of this bait consumed is plenty to dispatch a gopher. So yeah, just fire that down the hole. Make sure it's well under the hole. Sometimes they can eject. The bait, keep an eye out for that. The label recommendations indicate, cleanup of any dead rodents that you find on the surface, so as to avoid secondary poisoning of predators or scavengers. And I think the suite of control products that are currently registered are all efficacious, but there are some considerations for each of them. And so the zinc phosphide baits tend to leave less in the way of residues. They produce phosphine gas in an acidic environment. So when it hits the acid of the rodent's gut, it'll produce phosphine gas, and that can result in rapid cell necrosis and rapid death. In the case of the anticoagulant baits, so stuff like Rosol or Ramet Green, those take longer to kill, and they can be multiple feeding baits, and may require multiple applications. I've talked to a lot of growers who have good satisfaction with the zinc phosphide baits. So some prefer to use Rosol in different settings. They're efficacious, but timing is really important. You got to get them down before green up.
Okay, and then talking about that integrated management,
Yeah.
what would that look like, let's say, in a canola field? So you're putting down baits. What else are you doing?
Yeah, no, as I indicated earlier, I mean, tolerance of predators can be very important. I realize that, badgers aren't always welcome in a production system, but they can reduce a Richardson's ground squirrel colony by 50% or more. I realize coyotes are also not the most popular animals on the landscape, but I just learned this recently, actually. They actually hunt with gophers, or not with badgers, pardon me, for gophers, and they can actually have a synergistic effect on the success of each's hunting. So they can actually increase their hunting efficiency by about a third. So that is the coyotes tend to chase them down the holes where the badgers can ferret them out. You know, Badger goes down the hole and it can force the gophers up where the coyotes can get it. And I saw footage recently of coyotes and badgers walking a trail together, actually hunting together. So I haven't seen that in the flesh. I've only ever seen footage of it, but fascinating to me that
That's really interesting.
yeah, they would team up like that. So I realized that badgers can cause some damage, which could be a consideration, especially for equipment and potentially livestock.
Hmm.
Uh, but I think some tolerance for these predators is really important. There's a large snake species called bull snake that can be an effective predator of burrowing rodents as well. So I encourage people to have tolerance of their legless friends, and of course raptorial birds. So one of the things that we promote through the Gopher Control Program that SARM administers is the construction of raptor platforms and bird boxes. And some of these bird boxes are relatively large. So if you're trying to get American kestrel or barn owl established on your place, you're going to need different size boxes. So I encourage people to do a quick Google search for crop protection news, raptor platforms, and we have some plans for the construction of the boxes that are associated both with American kestrel, American barn owl, and raptor platforms as well. So the raptor platforms are cheap and easy to make. I put one on my place for
Right.
about 200 bucks, and you actually qualify for a rebate for those. So
Fantastic. So while we can't import predators, we can make it enticing for them to come in.
truly, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I don't encourage people to move a truckload of
Badgers.
snakes. Yeah, you have a truckload of badgers or a truckload of snakes across. Try to get those across the border or anything. The border. I think the border is pretty complicated right now. So, yeah, but no, you can promote them and tolerate them when you do encounter them. Also important. Weasels. We've got 3 species of weasels that can be very important predators, primarily of baby gophers, and I've seen short-tailed weasel really consuming a lot of baby gophers at an individual colony. So yeah, tolerance of predators coupled with judicious use of poison baits and just incorporation of those factors can really help.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Dr. Tansey.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
And that was Dr. James Tansey on Real Agriculture.